89% of all sales on Amazon come through the buy box. So, what is the buy box and how on earth do we win it? Let's dive in. I'm going to show you exactly how I win the buy box as much as possible, and more importantly, how I keep the buy box while still maintaining and even increasing profit. So what is the buy box and why does it matter? This right here is known as the buy box. So whenever a customer clicks either add to cart or buy now, the owner of the buy box at the time that the customer clicks that button is the person that they are buying from. We want to be on this buy box as much as possible. Now, Amazon does often share the buy box around the different sellers, and there are different ways for each seller to be able to take advantage of getting onto the buy box. The key difference between Amazon and other marketplaces such as eBay is that there is just one listing for each item, and multiple sellers will sell the same product on the same listing. Therefore, Amazon rotates the buy box and gives ownership to the buy box who they think are going to provide the customer with the best experience. So if Amazon take care of who owns the buy box, why is it important for us to know this? Well, it's really important because if we're not currently on the buy box, then the customers would have to click on see other sellers in order to be able to see that we are also selling this product. So if you are serious about making money on Amazon, then you need to not only understand how the buy box works, but you need to take advantage and do as many things possible to make sure that you own the buy box as much as you can. Now, earlier I mentioned that 89% of all sales come through the buy box. Well, what about the rest? So some of these sales will account for times when Amazon remove the buy box. When they remove the buy box, this is the image that is seen. So instead of being able to do this, the customer only has this option. Quite often it looks to the customer like they can't actually even buy the product. They just have to go through a few more steps. Now, why does this happen? Generally speaking, Amazon will take away the buy box if they think the customer is not getting a good experience. So generally speaking, that means either the price is too high or the shipping time is far too long. Now, they're doing this to try to encourage sellers to either reduce their price or make their shipping quicker. Usually when a seller reduces their price or a stock becomes available quicker to the customer, then the buy box will return. So how does Amazon decide who wins the buy box? Amazon don't just randomly pick people. They have this algorithm that they use in order to decide who should have the buy box. Now, this is Amazon's famous buy box algorithm. They never fully release exactly how they decide. Now, I think they do this for two reasons. Firstly, it gives them the flexibility to change it. For example, one of the factors of the algorithm is the fulfillment method. That means, are you an FBA seller? Are you an FBM seller? By not releasing the rules of the algorithm, it allows Amazon to make changes. If you imagine during Christmas, they get very, very busy. There's loads of stock going into their warehouses. They may well start to favor an FBM seller because Amazon don't have to deal with the shipping. Whereas for the rest of the year, they may favor an FBA seller because they like to be able to ship it out to customers next day. So by not releasing the algorithm, it gives them the ability to be flexible and change it at a moment's notice. But also, if they do release exactly how it works, it would allow people to game the system. And ultimately, what they want is they just want the best possible outcome for their customers. So they don't want sellers starting to game the algorithm in order to take advantage of their own customers. So what do we know about the way the algorithm works? So competitive pricing is key. Now, interestingly, I've put competitive pricing and not cheapest pricing. They don't always give it to the cheapest priced. But what they do want is they do want it to be competitively priced. So as I mentioned just now, sometimes when they take away the buy box, it's because they deem the price to be too high. So they're trying to encourage the seller to reduce that price once again. It certainly won't always be the lowest price. And I've got some good examples of situations where it isn't the lowest price. And it's important to understand that just because you're the lowest price, it doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win the buy box. We've touched upon fulfillment methods. FBA is always going to be preferred because you're able to get the product to the customer quicker. There may be situations where an FBM seller will get the buy box even if they're priced the same as an FBA seller, because Amazon simply want to push some products that they don't have to fulfill themselves. Customer ratings and reviews are critical. The entire algorithm is completely based on giving the Amazon customer the best experience possible. One of the ways Amazon can do that is by rewarding sellers that they deem to be good sellers. How do they know that you're a good seller? One very good, simple method is by having lots of positive reviews. A very underrated part of the algorithm is the account health and performance. Now, historically, I see a lot of people talking about how that doesn't really matter, but over the years, Amazon have been changing the way they view account health and also the way they score account health. I've done a really good account health guide. The link to that will be in the description, so go and check it out to learn more about account health. A lot of people used to say that it isn't really that important when it comes to the buy box. They used to just see it as you need a healthy account to sell. But I have got a personal experience, which I'm going to show you, which shows you exactly why good account health will make or break your sales on Amazon. This final box here talks about inventory levels, and this is definitely something that has been added to the algorithm much more recently. It's clear to see that if you can keep a lot of stock, or at least constant stock, of a product on the listing, then you are going to get rewarded for that. So Amazon will view you as a competent seller. You're continually selling, you're not going out of stock, you are providing a customer with a steady flow of this product. Therefore, we can trust you and we can keep giving you the buy box because we know that our customers are happy with what you are giving them. When it comes to being an OA seller, this is not necessarily the easiest thing to do. So what I like to do is I like to split my business. I like to have some replenishable items that I can continually restock and try to stay in stock as much as possible. And then I have another side of the business, which is just those deals that once you sell out, and then maybe in 2 or 3 months, you'll be able to buy again. If your type of sourcing leads you down the second option where you can't stay in stock all the time, don't sweat it. It's not the end of the world, but it's something to consider when you are doing your analysis. If you're doing your keeper graph analysis and you are seeing people who are staying in stock quite a lot of the time, potentially it's a product you may want to avoid. A couple more things that is just worth considering with the buy box, but aren't really that involved in us doing anything to win it, is location can be different. So for example, if someone's in the north of the country, if they look at a certain product, they're going to have someone different on the buy box to someone that is down south, because ultimately it's all about who can get the stock to that customer. So if the stock is in different warehouses across the country, then different people are going to see different sellers on the buy box. Additionally, when it comes to business customers are likely to see people that are VAT registered. They're going to have priority over non-VAT registered. So now that you know how Amazon decides who gets the buy box, let's get into my exact strategy to capture it as much as possible. Most people think the buy box means you have to have the lowest price. This simply is not true. Yes, price is important. Obviously, you can't be sat there at 50% above the lowest seller and expect to keep having the buy box. That's just unrealistic. However, if you are a seller that sells this product a lot, if you're staying in stock, if you're getting minimal returns, if you are getting good reviews, then all of these things are going to give you an edge over a brand new seller that comes on and tries to undercut you. Keeping your account performance as high as possible is also going to be super critical to making sure that you can keep this buy box. For those of you who are new to Amazon, you may not yet be using a repricer, but that is going to be costing you sales. Prices change probably hundreds of times a day on Amazon, and that's because people are using repricers. Now, I've listed here the 2 repricers that I've used. I used to use STK or Seller Toolkit, and I currently now use Ascent Repricer. The reason for using a repricer, especially when you start out, is because the prices are changing. You are going to maybe set your price, you're going to go away, come back in an hour, you've not made any sales, but you look at your stock, you look at your listings, and you're not lowest price or not matching the buy box price on any of your listings anymore because the price has changed. By getting a repricer, that's how you get around these things, because what a repricing tool will do is, according to the rules you've set, it will keep following prices as long as it doesn't break the rules that you've set. Big tip is to make sure you've put minimums into your repricing strategy and make sure you're comfortable with them and that they make sense. I would also urge people to go for a repricer that not only follows rules, but also tries to increase the buy box price. I used to use Seller Toolkit, and ultimately that just races to the bottom. I now use Ascent Repricer, and this is an excellent repricing tool that increases the buy box price once it's won it. So if I show you 2 examples here, this top example is what happened on one of my listings when I was using Seller Toolkit. People decided to start to undercut, and the repricers all kicked in, and they just plummeted down and wiped off huge amounts of profit ultimately. Here is an example of Ascent Repricer where once the buy box was won, it was trying to just increase the buy box price, and it's done it very, very successfully. Benefits of using a repricer are very clearly shown here in this graphic. So here I was using a repricer here, but in the middle of the month I switched over repricers. So in the first half of that month I was using Seller Toolkit, and I moved over to Ascent Repricer. And this is a really good visualization. You can see this first half of the month here, the sales were fairly consistent with one really good day, but you can see they were of a level. And then literally 16th of August I switched over, and you can see just everything elevated and it just increased. So you can see how firstly using the wrong repricer was hurting my sales. So if you now imagine not using a repricer, it would really, really hurt your sales. Step 2, use FBA whenever possible. Why FBA, not FBM? Well, ultimately, fulfilling orders through Amazon allows you to have the fast Prime eligible shipping. This is when the customer gets the product the next day. This is one of the reasons this business model works so well. We are able to buy products online at other stores and sell them through Amazon because the people that shop on Amazon are paying for convenience. They love just being able to buy something 10 o'clock at night and next day it arrives. You can't do that with FBM. This is why FBA, the vast majority of time, will get an advantage on the buy box over FBM. Not only that, but you are able to price higher than FBM and still win the buy box. So for example, an FBM seller may be selling something for £14. You are likely to be able to sell that same item for £15 or £16 and still get the buy box. I've already spoken about times when FBM may get some priority, but realistically, those times are very, very rare. When it comes to dominating the buy box, rather than just winning, FBA is going to be the play. Dominating using FBM is always going to have a higher risk, and you may come in and out of winning that buy box. FBM gives you the opportunity to absolutely dominate. Step 3 is to keep your inventory levels steady. So what happens is if you are reducing your stock, running out of stock, Amazon may look to switch to different sellers in order to favor other sellers. Similarly, if you go out of stock for a while and you come back onto the listing, other sellers may have built up the reputation with Amazon on that listing, and it might be difficult for you to win it back. Also, what's starting to happen is having too much stock is starting to be frowned upon by Amazon, and they're actually starting to limit the amount of stock that some people can send in of certain ASINs. So how can we go about making sure this doesn't happen to us? The biggest thing for me is to track your inventory. Make sure you know what is happening. Make sure you know how much stock you've got, and make sure you know how long that's going to last you. Also, make sure you know how long a lead time it's going to be before you can get back into stock. Backup stock is not something I truly believe in, if I'm honest. For me, there's no point in me having stock at home, because by the time I see something starting to sell out and I send more stock in, it's probably 2 or 3 weeks before it's prime delivery. And ultimately, we've probably going to have lost out on sales. However, with this situation of Amazon starting to reduce the amount of stock certain ASINs can be sent in on, then it can make sense to still buy and then just start to drip feed it in as you start to sell out. I personally don't have a huge amount of storage, so that method is not ideal for me. However, if you're able to get big quantity discounts and you've got storage and your cash flow can handle it, then buying in bulk and sending it in bit by bit is certainly not the end of the world. Step 4, maintain a strong seller account. Now, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll probably know that I've had many account issues which have really hampered my business. And this is why I'm a massive advocate for keeping on top of your account health. But it does also come into play when it comes to your buy box percentage win. So what things do I look for? If I'm sending via FBM, then order defect rate has to be below 1%. Now, when you first start out, this is very difficult because obviously you don't have a huge volume of sales. So the slightest mistake, slip up, is going to be a huge percentage of those orders. So I suggest if you're going to do FBM, go quite heavily in the first instance in order to make sure that if anything does happen, the percentage is very low. This also goes for late shipment rate, which again only applies to FBM. Customer messages, always reply within 24 hours. Again, with FBM, that's super important. If you're FBA, you can simply put no response necessary. However, I do tend to try and answer because it can sometimes help reduce the chance of getting a return. And it also supposedly helps if you get any A to Z claims from FBM shipments, and Amazon can see that you have been helping customers through FBA shipments, then it can help their response with those cases. The biggest thing though is look after your account health score. Keeping it above 200 is absolutely critical. And I've got a really good example to show you why in a second. Step 5, get more reviews. Amazon ultimately care the most about customer satisfaction. So how can they give the customer the best satisfaction? By using their best sellers. And how can you become one of their best sellers? Well, lots of reviews, positive reviews, are going to help you become a really good seller in Amazon's eyes. So what's the best way for you to gain reviews? Firstly, it's all about stock. So buy from legitimate sources. Do not take any risks whatsoever. Try to avoid highly returned items. For me, the things that absolutely jump out are things like clothes and shoes. When it comes to that, lots of people obviously buy multiple sizes to try them on and then simply return them. So just try to avoid things like that. Don't mislabel returns. So make sure if you're going to try to sell your returns again, make sure you sell them in the correct used category. And then finally, use review tools. So I use a tool called Sage Mailer, and they automatically send a review request to customers for you. It massively boosts the number of reviews you get. It's well worth using. So what are the common mistakes that will kill your buy box chances? For me, quite simply, 3 main things. 1p undercutting. Now, this absolutely hurts your profits, and people do it because they think they're going to win the buy box. But the reality is it doesn't actually even help you win the buy box. Let me show you. Here we have a very good example. £23.40. So you see this bold here. This is the current seller that's on the buy box. £23.40. Someone has reduced the price by a penny, £23.39. They've reduced their price, yet Amazon has not rewarded them with the buy box. So it just shows you that just because you're the lowest price does not mean you're going to win the buy box. Here I have an even better example. Not only is this person on the buy box, there are 3 sellers 2 pence below that are not on the buy box. And this just shows you how reprices work. So what's actually happened here is someone has reduced their price by 1 pence, in this case probably 2 pence. And what's actually happened is 2 other sellers, repricers, have kicked in before Amazon has even noticed, and therefore the person who's dropped their price in an attempt to win the buy box has already got competition from 2 other sellers, and Amazon hasn't caught up to even award them the buy box. So if you're a seller thinking you can just drop the price by a penny, quickly win the buy box for 5-10 minutes and hopefully make a sale, it doesn't even work, because 2 other sellers, repricers, have kicked in before Amazon's kicked in, and therefore any advantage they were hoping to get has just simply evaporated, because there are now 2 other sellers who are probably going to win the buy box instead of them because they've got more stock. And this is exactly what happens when this occurs. Someone will drop their price by a penny, a repricer will match. They'll drop it again, a repricer will match. They'll drop it again, a repricer will match. And you can see it just plummets through the floor and everybody just loses all their profit. Okay, the next element of mistake, I think, is running out of stock. Now, as I've said before, the method we use, you're not always going to be able to maintain the levels of stock. But if you can, I highly recommend it. I've seen really good dominance on buy boxes. I've then run out of stock for just a couple of weeks, managed to get back into stock, and my sales dropped on that listing compared to previously. So there definitely is a pattern to it. The final mistake, and probably the most important in my opinion, is when people ignore their account health. So what is account health? So account health, this refers to essentially sort of like the IP claims that get issued. And what you're trying to achieve is you want to get all zeros. So we've got all these potential violations that we might hit. And ideally what we want is all zeros down here. This would give us a nice healthy score. We want to keep our score above 200. Everything above 200 means we're healthy. Anything below means we're at risk of deactivation. And then below 100 means we are potentially going to be deactivated. Now, a lot of people don't see this as a potential buy box issue. They just see this as a situation where you just don't want to get your account deactivated. However, I am living proof that that is not the case. In the past, when I was a much lesser seller, I dipped below 200 and my account health was 172. And these were my results. You can see I was really struggling with sales. I even had days when I'd made 0 sales. Then literally managed to get my score back above 200 and boom, look what happened. Insane difference. So this happened to me. It could happen to you if you do not keep on top of your account health. So for those people out there that don't believe account health will affect your sales, you could not be more wrong. So make sure to take care of your account health. Like I already mentioned, I'm going to link below. My account health guide is completely free. Click on the link, have a read through it, and try to put into practice anything you think you can improve on. So there we have it. This is the theory behind the Amazon buy box and how you can completely dominate with the right strategy. There we have it, the buy box. Any questions, put them in the comments below. Like and subscribe, and let me know any other topics you want me to cover. See you in the next one.